What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to basketball, and more specifically, welcome back to trade season. It feels like the trade rumors are starting to ramp up again. Reports are coming in as of yesterday when you guys are seeing this that the Bucks are willing to trade Chris Middleton, Bobby Portis, Pat Connaughton, of course, Pat Connaughton. But anyway, let's go simulate what we think the Bucks should do this deadline. And that brings us back here to the spreadsheets. These videos tend to do very well on the channel, so I'm excited whenever I actually have an excuse to do these. We try to keep this series as realistic as possible. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to go through and kind of evaluate what's going on with the roster, talk about the actual cap implications and the financial situations that these teams are in, and then we're going to go over to Fanspo and try to make some realistic deals for the Milwaukee Bucks that we think are going to make them better, right? This team's trying to contend. They're trying to win a championship. We know that, right? Like, they've got their main two guys, and then they've got a couple of straggling contracts that aren't really helping them very much right now. And just looking at the draft pick situation, it's not necessarily the best. So anyway, Shams was saying that, like, look, those three players that I mentioned earlier, those guys are up for grabs. They've made it public now that Chris Middleton is available, as much as I hate to hear that, just because of the sentimentalness. I'm not a Bucks fan or anything, but it's like, you know, it was him, Drew, and Giannis in that one championship run that they had and everything. But look, it does look like Middleton has just kind of been beaten down a little bit at this point in his career due to the injuries and everything. And look, I'm not saying he's not going to have good games here and there or everything. It's just, I think it's a little too risky to have $31 million coming off the bench that you're not sure what kind of production you're going to get out of him every single night. Like, we're back up to, I think, like 12 points a game and like, I don't know, like average defense at this point. And he's shooting like average from three right now, like league average, but $31 million, we can find someone else to take this money and get something back that's a little bit more useful at the end of the day. So that's what I kind of want to dive into. And I guess where I want to start is let's just talk about the cap implications, because I feel like I always start out these videos by saying, okay, this is going to be complicated. And I don't think these things through beforehand. I like to kind of do these live and in person with you guys so you guys can hear my whole thought process and everything with these. But every one of these videos is complicated at this point because of the way the rules work and the different aprons and stuff like that. And look, the Bucks are a second apron team right now, which means it is very, very difficult to go and make these trades, because here's some of the things that we have to keep in mind. You can't use any of your mid-level exception. That doesn't matter for us right now. We can't put two contracts together to go get a bigger contract, right? Like, I couldn't go combine Andre Jackson Jr. and Taurean Prince, who add up to about almost $4 million. I can't then go get like a $4 million player. That's not how it works. You have to do like two players for two players or something like that. So that's a restriction that we have on us. We can't send out cash as a part of a trade, which is kind of a bummer because we have some cheap contracts that we could easily move and then maybe get back a slightly better player if we were saying we want to throw cash in. Can't do that. Can't use trade player exceptions from like previous seasons and stuff, and we can't take back any more money than we send out, right? So like this is the most amount of money that we can take back, and obviously Fanspo will kind of help us keep track of that stuff at the end of the day as well, because it shouldn't allow a trade like that to go through, which is very helpful. Shout out Fanspo at the end of the day. But yeah, we're restricted right now. And look, we're gonna most likely bring in a player that's more expensive than Chris Middleton. We're gonna have to pair him with like a Pat Connaughton or something, but you guys get it. Let's talk about the roster. Lillard and Giannis have been awesome this year. No complaints about them whatsoever. They're both really, really good. They're both going to get you like 25 plus points every single night. Giannis is still a monster defensively and in MVP conversations. Lillard should be an all-star this year. I actually had him as an all-star starter. He was like the one guy that we got wrong in the video, which was kind of cool. So no Lillard as a starter, but I'm sure he'll be a bench player. We have Chris Middleton. We already talked about him. He still has the player option. He's probably going to accept it. Probably going to be routing him somewhere else. Have I been saying, was it Pat Connaughton that they made available? Who did I say? Chris Middleton, Pat Connaughton, and someone else? It's Bobby Portis is the other one they made available. I might have been saying that incorrectly to start the video. It's Friday. Leave me alone. Brook Lopez, Splash Mountain here. The rebounding isn't great with Bobby Portis. For Brook Lopez, the good news is Giannis is a really good rebounder, right? And you've got other dudes that crash the glass pretty well in this team, so I'm not stressed about that. I was looking at Brook Lopez's numbers before the video and everything because I wanted to make sure, and like, we're still hitting a good 3-point percentage for a big man, right? To where it makes me feel good when you have like Dame and Giannis kind of running pick and roll and stuff. You can throw him in the corner, let him be Splash Mountain, and then defensively, he still is in like the 87th percentile, so like, really, really good on that side of the ball. He is above average on the offensive side of the ball as well, which is good. So I think we want to hold on to Brook Lopez. They've said they've made Bobby Portis available. And here's the reason why they're saying that, right? Because I look at Bobby Portis and I don't necessarily want to move Bobby Portis if I can prevent myself from doing so in this video. The thing is, they might have to if we're going and adding Jimmy Butler to this team, right? The guys that we're hearing are Jimmy Butler, like Bradley Beal, maybe Zach LaVine, guys like that. I've even thought, like, man, am I going to make like a Brandon Ingram move in this video? Because that would just be easier. Does Brandon Ingram actually make this better? I don't know. We'll talk about it, right? So I look at Bobby Portis and I go, man, super team friendly deal, good backup big man. Like his numbers this season, like efficiency wise, are down, but like his rebounding's up, his passing's up and everything, and like he's still like hitting above average from three. So I don't really want to get rid of that if I can prevent it. It's so hard to find bigs and stuff, and so I'd like to hold on to Bobby Portis if I can in this video. Pat Connaughton, he's a floor spacer that can't hit a three at this point, right? And I can't pay him $9 million each of the next year. I just can't. AJ Johnson down here, our first round pick point guard that the Bucks should not have picked this year. Look, this guy is an extremely athletic and raw talent, really, really young, just very inexperienced when it comes to basketball. They shouldn't have taken a guy like that. They should have taken someone that can help them win right now. I'm going to say that he's available in this video, and I know that'll upset some Bucks fans, but I'm going to tell you guys, look in the mirror and call yourselves a dum-dum if you're like, well, we have to hold on to AJ Johnson because maybe this guy will be good in like 4 years or something. Maybe he'll be okay. Like, you got to win right now, man. You got Giannis, you got Dame, you got aging Brook Lopez and everything. Like, go win right now. Don't bank on a guy that you've seen play like 5 minutes of basketball this year and you saw him be really fast and dunk the ball once. Just don't. I don't want to see any comments about that. This is a reminder. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, and comment. I've responded to every single comment on my YouTube channel up to this point, and I intend to keep on doing so. By the way, stick around for the end of the video where we'll do like the comments of the video or whatever. That's been a fun thing to do. Marjon Beauchamp. Yeah, I feel like I was right about this guy coming in the league. It's just, I don't know, it's too raw. He's an interesting physical prospect. It's not really turning into anything. He should be a good trade chip just because he's got a couple years left or whatever, and somebody's going to be interested in the physical prospect of him, but not doing us any good right now. Gary Trent Jr., after having a rough start to the season, has picked things up. He's about league average offensively and defensively right now, and he's hitting his three ball, so we'll absolutely take that. On this team, if we're adding another star player, having someone that can just reliably space the floor for all of our stars so that they can kick it out to them and they can hit three-pointers, that's awesome, right? We're going to need that. We're going to need that. We're going to need that. Okay. Moving on, AJ Green, same thing. Defensively, not quite as good, but even more lethal of a three-point shooter. One of the best in the NBA. DeLon Wright, not a guy we need on this team. He's been pretty poor this season overall, if I'm just being honest with you. Pretty inefficient, doesn't always seem even that focused, and defensively he's been pretty rough as well. So that's a contract that we can try to move and maybe get something else. Taurean Prince, been one of the best three-point shooters in basketball this year, 3-and-D guy to the max. Love it, right? We definitely want to keep a guy like this around, especially if we're trying to get by like the Celtics at some point. And we need somebody that we can throw onto a Jaylen Brown or a Jason Tatum, and they aren't going to be like outmuscled and outsized or something on the wing. So that's valuable, especially because he can hit the shot. Andre Jackson Jr., one of my more favorite players in the NBA, and he's going to be in the dunk contest now, apparently. Offensively, not much is happening there. Like, he's pretty low. I think he's like in like the 11th or 12th percentile or something like that. I looked at numbers like yesterday or something just because I like to keep up with those things when I can on those reports. But Andre Jackson Jr., pretty low on the offensive board. I believe he's like 93 or 94th percentile though on defense. We all know that, right? Like, he's a defensive monster, super athletic. What I do like about him on offense, and it's nice that he's actually hitting above league average from three now. It's on like 1.5 attempts a game, right? So it's not a huge sample size, but still. I like that he doesn't settle for things, and he's kind of like Ben Shepherd for the Pacers, where he'll catch and he'll cut or drive and rip with the ball and kind of keep the basketball moving and the offense flowing. So I still don't see him as like a negative offensively. I think he is still keeping things moving. He's just not like actively getting the assist or scoring the basketball or anything, but I don't think he like stops anything, which is nice. I think that's a rare skill. Chris Livingston, look, he's taking up roster space as a cheap roster and a reserve forward, so that is what it is. Tyler Smith, I'm actually interested in this guy. Like, look, you can have a project on the team, right? I think that's totally fine. He actually got in the other night and looked pretty solid. I'll continue to say I think he should have been the first round pick, and AJ Johnson should have been the second, but it is what it is at the end of the day. Tyler Smith, I can't imagine there's going to be a huge amount of trade interest in him compared to Johnson, because he was the first round pick, and that's just how people think about things at the end of the day. So he's probably a nice cheap option to have on the back of the bench. That could be a role player like next year or something for us. AJ Johnson is not going to be that good by next year, most likely. But look, if we need to do a trade for Tyler Smith, fair enough, because look, we're just trying to win right now. But I think it's much more likely that Johnson gets thrown into something. Looking at the draft pick situation, this is what we got, y'all. This is what we're down to right now. Like, yes, they've sent out some things where they have swap rights with like Portland or something like that, I believe. And so that's because of like the Lillard trade, but this is what we have to trade right here. Bucks first round pick in 2031, which probably decently valuable, right? Because who knows what they look like at that point. And then Bucks 31 second. So that's what we have to work with. We've got holes to fill. It'd be nice to add another point guard to this team, because we're truly missing out on some ball handling in this group, especially when there's like a lot of really good defensive teams in the East. So having guys that can move the basketball, I think, are going to be important. We're actually doing pretty good in the shooting department overall between Taurean Prince, Gary Trent, AJ Green, and like Bobby Portis and Brook Lopez can't step out and hit a shot. I wouldn't mind adding another forward or something like that could play in the rotation if needed, but we'll see what we can get at the end of the day. So I guess let's go over to Fanspo, man. This is where the magic starts to happen. So I think the first thing to look at, right, is there a realm where the Jimmy Butler trade makes some sense, right? Because here's the thing with the Miami Heat. The Heat want to remain competitive by the end of this, right? That's their whole thing, is they don't want to give Jimmy Butler away for like some scrubs or something like that. And so I get concerned right away with this, because I don't know who we just give them straight up to make something like this happen, right? And I think most of us have kind of come to the conclusion that it's not going to be a 1-for-1 or like just two teams making something happen to move Jimmy Butler, right? I don't think there's any realm where this could even happen. Like, how would you even do this? It would have to be Chris Middleton, Pat Connaughton. That gets us to $40 million right there, right? And then you'd have to... No, that's going to be difficult in and of itself. So what then the conversation becomes, you add Phoenix, right? And then you go, okay, are we the ones taking Bradley Beal on? And now we have to send out Bobby Portis and Chris Middleton to make this work, right? And I'd prefer not to give up Bobby Portis. So that's where I get a little bit confused, right? I don't see a realm where we can play in this. I feel like it's going to be in the best interest of the Bucks to go somewhere else. Do I think Jimmy Butler would be an amazing addition to this team? Yeah. Bradley Beal, while I think would be helpful, like I think he'll be better than Chris Middleton at this point, I think we can go get better options and make the trade a lot easier on ourselves just avoiding this. So here's what I want to explore. First thing, with the Pelicans, let's talk about this, right? Brandon Ingram is $36 million. That's way easier to go get, right? We can do Chris Middleton, send him over there. The logic is, look, they're not going to be able to re-sign Ingram anyway. They send him over to us, or that they don't want to re-sign him, basically, right? Is they're going into like maybe a soft rebuild or something like that. So we send Middleton over to them. They get him for the rest of this season. They're not going to be good this year anyway, and Chris Middleton's not as good as Brandon Ingram, so they lose more basketball games, right? Maybe next year, while Chris Middleton's on a 1 year, right, and he's even easier to trade, maybe he's balling out for them a little bit, maybe he's playing solid, and then they can flip him again and turn him into something so that they can go get some more assets or something like that, right? Maybe that's the logic. Obviously, we'd send over Pat Connaughton as well here, but remember, we have to take back the same amount of players here. So Brandon Ingram would go over here. I'm not positive this is what I do. And then we take back like a Javonte Green, who you guys know I think is a phenomenal player to have in the reserves. Does this trade even work? This trade works. Okay, so there's an option here, right? There's an option. What I think is complicated, right? Is like Brandon Ingram likes to have the basketball in his hands. He does. He's good with it, right? He can hit some tough shots. We all know he's one of the more crafty players in the NBA. He can play make a little bit. Like he can just do a little bit of everything, right? Does have a long injury history and everything, and that can be concerning. He's usually out a couple different times for the year, and he goes cold at moments, and what's he going to do without the basketball? And when Giannis and Lillard are kind of doing their thing, because it's not like they're running a very intricate offense out there in Milwaukee either. Shout out Doc Rivers. It's still better than what they were doing before, don't get me wrong, but I don't know. It worries me that Ingram's not going to be involved enough, and I don't see him doing enough without the basketball to make me feel good about this. So I want to explore another option here, and that's with the Chicago Bulls, right? Zach LaVine is another name. $43 million, so a little bit less than Jimmy Butler, right? So how would this work? Chris Middleton would go over here. Let's send Zach LaVine back in this sense, and now we throw in Pat Connaughton again, and that's going to get us probably not quite there, right? Because they have to send back someone else. I think the obvious one is a Torrey Craig. Right, we all know that Torrey Craig can be a solid role player, 6'7", 3-and-D type guy. The Bulls just don't like to play him because they only want to play point guards at the end of the day, so that is what it is. I'm guessing that this trade doesn't work. I think we're going to be off by like $1 million or $2 million. $1.9 million exactly, so good mental math by me. So we need to throw a little bit more into this trade to make it work, and let's just even think about this. Does this make sense, right? So we'd be adding Zach LaVine to this team. He would most likely slide in at the starting shooting guard where Andre Jackson Jr. is right now, right? So Andre Jackson Jr. could move to the bench. We still have Taurean Prince out there, which is a nice small forward to have amongst this group. You would have Lillard, LaVine, Taurean Prince, and Brook Lopez all around Giannis. And Zach LaVine's having the most efficient year ever, and a large part of that is because he has Lonzo and Giddey setting him up, right? So we have to expect for somewhat of a efficiency drop because of that, right? Because the Bulls are running a pretty good offense this year. Defensively, they're kind of whatever. But Zach LaVine has proven to be able to play without the basketball as well. He can do both. Like, he can create, he can score with any of them, but he runs a lot of different actions for the Bulls as well. He gets the backdoor cuts and stuff like that, so that's where it's going to be valuable. But do we really have like a true elite playmaker on this team like that? Not necessarily, but it's good to know that there's an option of that. And you'd have two of the most dynamic scorers in basketball in Lillard and LaVine on one team. So that sounds infinitely better than the other options to me. Again, I think Jimmy Butler would be ideal. I just think that the math is going to be too hard on that because we're going to have to package Middleton and Bobby Portis to do it. This way we don't have to, because Chris Middleton, he goes to the Bulls. The Bulls aren't trying to win basketball games right now anyway. They're just trying to unload contracts. They're going to save a little bit of money in individual contracts this way, right? Obviously, they're going to take back more money by the end of this just because, but Middleton's a lesser deal. He might even want to just be bought out at the end of the season so he can go to a contending team. That's fine. The Bulls get off their stuff even earlier. I think that's fine for them, right? And don't get me wrong, we're going to compensate them more for this. I mean, this trade itself doesn't even work, so we have to explore it more, but the logic behind this makes more sense. We're going to retain more assets in Milwaukee, and the Bulls can get out of their situation, right? And we don't even have to talk to other teams. We can just figure this out amongst ourselves. So I think that this makes more sense. So we have to send over a little bit more money, $1.9 million. Who are we going to be sending? Because again, we have to send out the same amount of players as we took back. So this is where I look at it and I go, okay, who's a cheap player? Talen Horton-Tucker would be a nice player for them to take back. THT, while I would hate to trade any more point guards from the Bulls, because I'm so down for the all point guard team that the Chicago Bulls want to build. I'm here for it, right? But Talen Horton-Tucker is a solid rotational NBA player. He can handle the basketball, like we've been saying, when they're looking for more ball handlers and stuff like that. He's strong. He makes dumb decisions at times, but I don't hate that. So send him over to the Bucks, right? And then who are we taking back, right? What are we taking back at the end of the day? I'm looking around at this roster, and this is where I actually think AJ Johnson comes into play. Now, look, he's not going to be extremely valuable, right? He's not extremely valuable. Like, no matter what you want to think, Milwaukee Bucks fans, he's not extremely valuable, but he is a young point guard, and the Bulls love having those guys, and he is a guy that was just recently a first-round pick, probably shouldn't have been, and it's a low draft class, right? And again, GMs know this stuff, and like they're not stupid, right? And so they'll be like, look, like this isn't your typical like first round pick, right? This is a really raw guy that you took at the end of the first round. That and I'm really not trying to shit on this guy. I'm just trying to set expectations, right? And thought process, but they're going to say end of the first round, not a good draft class. He's a big project and everything. We've already got other guys at the guard position that we like better. Presumably the Bulls are going to be trying to move on from some of those guys like Kobe White and potentially like Alonzo Ball or something too. I know there's a lot of interest in those guys and they're being talked about with other teams. So we send AJ Johnson over there. They get a young player that's maybe interesting. Maybe he turns into something for them one day. But they're also getting Zach LaVine in this and 2 other rotation players. This is where the 2031 pick goes in. You're getting an elite talent at the end of the day, so you got to give up the pick here. I just think you have to. We're getting it out of the way early. This trade should work in theory. Cool. There we go. I think that this is great. So what did we do? Got rid of Middleton for a way better player right now in Zach LaVine. Infinitely better. Instant starter. Secondary ball handler is a great way to look at him in this. Pat Connaughton, who is just a negative asset for you at this point. AJ Johnson, you don't get to see him develop. You don't care about that right now. You're trying to win basketball games, and then you lose your pick, but you get Zach LaVine and 2 role players, right, that you can throw into your rotation, help on defense and stuff at the wing. You get another ball handler. I love that. So there goes the first round pick. There goes Chris Middleton, no longer a player option here. Pat Connaughton, and look at this. We also added a star player and kept Bobby Portis on the team. I think that makes just way more sense to me. All right, who else did I get rid of? AJ Johnson here. And then who did we add? We added Mr. LaVine. Over here, we added Talen Horton-Tucker, and we added Torrey Craig over here. So, looking at our depth chart now, Chris Middleton's no longer here. We're going to move Andre Jackson Jr. to the bench, which is, look, the offense of this starting lineup should be crazy, because Zach LaVine's now here. That's cool. Pat Connaughton, you're just out of the rotation. There you go. AJ Johnson's no longer on the team. Cool, cool, cool. Torrey Craig can slide in as kind of like a backup 4 for them. I like that. And then Talen Horton-Tucker can slide in as the backup point guard for right now. Cool. I like this. I do actually, I like this. I think this is going to work out just fine, honestly. So we were able to bring these guys in. This trade is successful at the end of the day, which is cool. I like that. Okay. I like this. I think this is a good start. We're not done yet, though, because let's just take a look at the rest of the roster, right? I mean, we kept Bobby Portis, and we added a star-level player. Cool. That's awesome. Chris Livingston, we'll look at seeing if there's something we can do with him. The problem is we're in the second apron, so we would have to find a contract that's like the same price as him. I'm thinking about why would a team want Chris Livingston, right? Maybe there's a team that's trying to sell, and they've got a guy in a cheap contract, but over a lot of years, those contracts don't really exist. That's because that's exactly what Chris Livingston is, right? Like they always make those years like non-guaranteed and everything. That's why he has a non-guarantee on here. So does Andre Jackson and AJ Green, by the way, but they're definitely going to exercise those ones. So I can't imagine he's going to be all that useful to us in a trade. DeLon Wright, we should just try to trade because it's just not a good asset to have right now. So if we can find someone else for like $2 million, I think that would be good. Gary Trent, no. Beauchamp, yeah, we should try to utilize that asset as well. I think that makes some sense. So where do we move these guys to is the question. Has to be to like a selling team or something, right? And who could a selling team be? It's not the Sixers. Like, could it be the Nets or something like that? Do the Nets have some cheap players that we could use, like Trendon Wofford? Like, where's DeLon Wright? He's $2 million exactly, and then 2.7 here as well. So a Trendon Wofford, is that really what we need? Do we need like another forward like that? Jalen Wilson would be cool, but I can't imagine them wanting to just give him up for nothing. So I'm not thinking them. The Charlotte Hornets, do you guys have somebody for us? Shout out Mark Williams, by the way. Dude has been balling. Taj Gibson's not going to help us. I don't think Seth Curry's going to help us enough right now. Musa, no, they're not going to move him. Toronto, what could we do with Toronto in this one? Mogbo, like, that's too much pressure on like a rookie. I need somebody that's a little bit more established, so Toronto's not going to have anybody like this. Washington's always willing to sell, but do they have anybody that's that cheap? I don't think so. No, they don't. The Wizards situation is just bleh. Just bleh. Okay. Do we help out the Phoenix Suns somehow with something? Do they have a cheap player that they'd rather have? I don't think so. The Warriors, I can't imagine so. So this is where we go to Portland. Who else are options, by the way? The Pelicans and Jazz. The Portland Trailblazers have interesting contracts that we could take on. Okay, so let's think about this for a second, right? Who are some people? We all know the Portland Trailblazers need to make some deals, right? They need to make big deals and they need to make small deals because they've got guys like Duop Reith who could be valuable to people and Delano Banton who could be valuable to people that they're just not using right now, right? They've just got kind of this weird roster nonsense situation going on right now. And you look at their pick situation, it's not anything to like write home about. It's nothing all that crazy for the situation they find themselves in. So we're not going to be able to take like DeAndre Ayton for them. Jeremy Grant actually would have been another interesting option to explore because he was only $29 million. There's a realm where you could tell me like, I think the Zach LaVine trade is better, but a Chris Middleton, Jeremy Grant swap could have been good as well because then you can move Giannis over to like the 3. Taurean Prince makes him a backup, right? Jeremy Grant's a nice player. I think I'd rather have Zach LaVine, but no, I'm pretty confident I'd rather have Zach LaVine, but that's at least interesting to me. We're not going to take back a Thibault or something. We already have our own and Andre Jackson Jr., but I like Banton and I like Reith right here, and I'm doing some quick math in my head, and this is actually pretty easy and makes a ton of sense. So let's take a look at our depth chart. Bobby Portis sometimes plays the 4, sometimes plays the 5. Guy like that. It'd be nice to have another center on the roster, so adding Reith to that can just be a run, jump, dunk, block shots type of guy. That's not really something we have on this team. So, well, Giannis is kind of that, but you guys know what I'm saying, at least at the center position. So, and I think we all know we like Reith, so that could be an interesting one. And then Banton gives us another ball handler that we're looking for. He could be the immediate backup there because let's take a look at Banton's numbers for this season because I want to confirm some stuff. And I'm not going to read too hard into it one way or another because the minutes aren't super consistent, but getting about 16 minutes a game, 9 points is pretty dope. Actually, 2.3 assists to 1 turnover. That's good. We like to see that, or the turnovers consistently stay pretty low with him, which is really, really nice. We see him as the big point guard, right? Like 6'9", handles the rock well, and shooting kind of well. He really picked up his shooting last year once he got to Toronto, and it's staying up. 37% on like 3 a game. Kind of interesting. You could play him with Lillard at times, or even like with LaVine, and so you could have a bunch of ball handlers on there that you could kind of do like a drive and kick attack on certain people. That's a good way to overwhelm people if you don't have a great like X's and O's coach like Doc Rivers and stuff, is if you can just kind of overwhelm people with constant attacks and stuff. It's what the Thunder used to do last year. They don't do it quite as much this year, but that's not a bad way to go about things. So maybe what we do then is we try to get both of those dudes on the team because let's just think about it for a second. Again, they don't need Banton, right? He's going to be gone at the end of this year. There's no point in them really re-signing him, so they'd rather get something for him. And look, you don't need to give him any more than like a second-round pick or something like that. So that's where our second-round pick comes in. So let's start off with that. Banton comes over here to the Bucks. This is where we send them DeLon Wright. We get rid of DeLon Wright. He's cheaper at the end of the day. So that's important to note. We're going to need to do a little bit more to actually make this all make sense, right? But we send over the second round pick in order to kind of compensate them for that. Cool. So they got rid of Banton, and now this is where, who is the other person I was going to trade? Beauchamp makes 2.7 and Reith only makes 2, and he also has more time potentially on his contract as well. So this is a little bit more worth it for them. They get to experiment with a younger guy in Beauchamp here. Does Beauchamp only have 1 year? Why do I have him as 2 years here? Is that accurate? I don't know. You guys can tell me below. It doesn't really matter much at the end of the day. So you can move him then over to the Bucks. You send Beauchamp over there. They get to mess around with him. They don't really have like a wing that's been working all that great for them anyway. Like Denny's like a forward, not quite a wing, which is similar but not at the same time. I don't know, basketball coach terminology, don't worry about it. So we send him over there. Wait, where did we send? Oh no, DeLon Wright, you're supposed to be over here in Portland. And look, they might just get rid of these guys they might just get rid of Wright instantly as far as I'm concerned, and then they just go get someone else like a vet to join the team or something. But I think that this will work. Like, this money works and everything. So that seems pretty good to me. Does it not? Like, I think that this is good. I'd much rather have these guys on the roster. So we add Reith, we add Banton. Let's go back here. We're out of draft picks. So there we go. We're not the Phoenix Suns who are figuring out ways to bring more of that stuff onto the team, but we eliminated Beauchamp, we eliminated DeLon Wright, two guys that weren't really helping us, and we add Delano Banton over here, and then we add Mr. Duop Reith, who Reith can then come in down here. I'm going to get rid of Wright. We're going to move THT down one spot and Delano Banton up. Okay. What do we have here now, right? We have a new roster, a new rotation, right? Where you have Lillard, you have a new star player in Zach LaVine, you got Prince, who's been awesome, Brook Lopez, who's been good, Giannis, awesome. What is the bench looking like now? You have your option in your bigger ball handlers coming off the bench. I can't stand that. I keep saying this on this channel. I gotta stop talking about people handling balls on this channel, man. But Delano Banton, THT, coming off the bench, you like that. You have two good options there when you didn't really have any before. Still have Gary Trent Jr. and AJ Green, so you have two good options here that are pretty interchangeable, which is nice. Oh, Beauchamp doesn't need to be here. You have Taurean Prince and Andre Jackson Jr., two bigger forwards and stuff. One who's hitting the three really well. He's been awesome. And then Andre, who can at least keep the offense moving, come off the bench, play defense. Cool. Torrey Craig was added. He might not be in the rotation, but he's an option, played a lot of basketball, wily vet, right? We retained Bobby Portis, which I think that's kind of going to be an underrated part of this video, or this idea in this video, if you would, is that we can hold on to him, and we have Reith as an option as well, that we can go to, who can give us some solid minutes as a center here and there, or something like that, if we really wanted to, if we just want to have a different look that's more of like a lob threat or something like that. Because I feel like Bobby Portis is going to be important come playoff time. Like, it's just so nice to have that bruiser on the team and kind of that enforcer player. And so, and he is good. Like, he does go and get you rebounds. He's physical. Like, teams don't like to go up against Bobby Portis. He's annoying. So I like this. Do we want to make any other moves? Are there other moves to make with this group? I mean, just look up and down the roster. Is there anybody here at this point that you don't really want? Like, we talked about, we want these guys, right? It's just Chris Livingston. And again, like, we can take a look at player contracts and everything to see if there's another player around his salary that would make some sense. Where's Chris Livingston at? So here's Chris Livingston, here's his salary. So we would have to trade him for someone else at this contract level, right? Craig Porter Jr. could be interesting. Jalen Wilson, like we talked about. There's a lot of rookies on here. There's a couple cheaper guys down here that I'm not sure, like Bruno Fernando, but why would they want Chris Livingston instead of Bruno Fernando? Like, there's no point. They would just be paying more salary. It doesn't make any sense to them to do that. PJ Dozier, no, I'm just not interested in that. See, there's nothing here. There's nothing here that we can do. So I feel like Livingston's just got to be on the team. You could make a case, if you're the owner of this team, right, that you just want to cut Chris Livingston and you go sign like some other free agent or something and bring another wing onto the team or something. So if you guys wanted to, you could make that argument here. I mean, we can go look at the free agents quick and decide if that's something that we want to do. Let's do 2024 here, over here at Spot Track. Shout out Spot Track. I want available. Gordon Hayward obviously retired, but Evan Fournier, like Markelle Fultz, are probably not adding to this team. Like a Chetty Osman could be interesting on this group. Justin Holiday, you know he's going to be reliable. Like I feel like he signs with the team every year and is like always okay, but I feel like the Nuggets just have dibs on him at all times, so maybe that's not the option. I'm not really seeing someone else at the wing that I'd feel like great about, and there's a reason for that. Wings are really valuable, right? If you can find a 3-and-D wing, it's a big deal. That's why Taurean Prince is so important to this team at the like $2 million that he makes, and Andre Jackson Jr. at like 1.8. It's extremely valuable to have guys like that. But overall, I think we've done the best we can with this group here. I really think we do. But again, this is where I kind of turn it over to you guys. I'm curious to hear what you guys think of this idea. Do I think that this is going to happen? I don't know. I really don't know what's going to happen with all these deals at the end of the day. And by the way, I'm giving you guys this video on Saturday so that it can be a little bit more relevant. Record an extra video for you guys. Get on the grind and everything, if you will. But I don't know. I'm curious to hear your guys' ideas. Put them down in the comments down below, or go join the Discord. The link is in the description to do so. Guys are posting trade ideas there all the time, and we're discussing it. Like I said, I think we've run through every trade scenario on the Discord at this point, but it should be interesting. It should be really interesting. But anyway, let's go see the comments of the video. Alrighty, so my comment of the video comes from the video that actually just went up a little bit earlier today at the time of recording this, my midseason NBA report card video, and this was just 8 minutes ago, actually. A guy that quoted me by saying, "We're just going to skip over Quentin Post," proceeds to drop 20 points last night, and I haven't replied to it yet. I told you guys I reply to every single comment, and I'll respond to these down here as well, so shout out Arcade Z Games, and I guess I'll say, I don't know, yeah, that's what I get for doubting the power of the post. All right, yeah, fair enough. Like I said, I respond to every comment. It's what I do. So thank you guys for commenting as always. And hey, leave me a comment. Maybe it'll be you guys in the next video. But hey, appreciate you guys as always. And we'll talk to you later. Thanks so much. Bye.